Hi, I'm Jon, and with me on stage is Helge.
Yes, Jon and I, we work for Microsoft Development Center Norway in Oslo, and we work on the Office Graph.
So welcome everyone to this presentation on building solutions with the Office Graph. It's a privilege for us to be here at Build, and we are very excited to speak in front of a room with developers. So we hope that you are excited about the topic, and we will do our utmost to get you enthused on building solutions powered by the Office Graph. So Arthur C. Clarke's third law states that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And the Office Graph is a bit magical. It breaks down content silos and makes connections between entities that has to this point been impossible inside of an enterprise. And speaking of magic, a magician would never reveal how his tricks works. Thankfully, we're not magicians. The two of us on stage, we're engineers, just like you. We want you to understand how the Office Graph works. We want you to take advantage of the wealth of information stored in the Office Graph and build amazing experiences that will delight users and help them be more productive. Please note that this is a roadmap presentation. That means that it may take a while before some of what we will show you here today is readily available. We apologize for this, but we do hope that you appreciate that we are sharing early, giving you the time to ramp up and be ready once we go to public beta. So Office 365 is Microsoft's cloud platform for the enterprise and consumers. It's a suite of services ranging from email in Exchange Online to document storage in OneDrive for business and work content management in SharePoint Online. It even includes Word, Excel, and PowerPoints running in your client machine or in your browser. Inside of Office 365, there is a wealth of data and relationships that we store in what we call the Office Graph. The Office Graph is an intelligent fabric that applies machine learning to map the connections between people, content, and interactions all across Office 365. And powered by the Office Graph, we have Delve, a modern experience inside of Office 365 that enables you to navigate, search, and discover. So look at the wealth of data we have in the graph. This provides you with a unique opportunity to create awesome experiences on your customers' behalf. So we have a packed agenda for you today. First, we will look at the Office Graph as it is today, and the new Office 365 experience called Delve. Delve is built to take advantage of the richness of the Office Graph, and we will use Delve throughout this talk to illustrate some key capabilities of the Office Graph. Then we will change gears and look at the future of the Office Graph and highlight some important changes that we are lighting up in the coming months. So one of the clearest messages that we get from our customers is that they want to see data from other services in Delve and the Office Graph. To show how we envision this, we have connected Salesforce to the Office Graph, and we will show that to you here today. Lastly, we will show how you can use the Office Graph API to create brand new experiences powered by the Office Graph. So if there are two things that you should leave this room with, it's that you will be able to put external content into the Office Graph and how to build amazing experiences powered by the Office Graph. Okay, and with that, I will leave you over to Helge, who will walk you through the current version of the Office Graph and Delve.
Right, so Delve is a new tool in Office 365. You find it on the top menu, together with Mail, Sites, Calendar, OneDrive for Business, and the other tools. However, it's a little bit different because it grabs data from all across the other workloads and does this so that the user can stay in the now, find what the user needs, and discover new connections. So this is really a totally different type of tool in Office 365 since it goes all across. And Delve is based on the Office Graph, so we'll have a bit of a look at the Office Graph. And traditionally, we've had silos in enterprise software where we only have loose connections between documents, users, emails, discussions, etc. With the Office Graph, we're connecting those entities together and organizing knowledge across all your work. So you can imagine the Office Graph as being a reasoning layer, connecting you to all your colleagues, all your documents, all your work, all across Office 365. And this happens at the same time as you are continuing to work in the tools that you like to work with, Outlook, Skype, Yammer, OneDrive for Business, etc. So Office 365 and the Office Graph simply connects the dots in the enterprise across the workloads. And the Office Graph adds semantics and insights to the relationships, making these things available to all the tools in Office 365, as well as any app that you create. So when we create something with all these connections, it's really important to look at security and privacy. So talk about security first. Delve and the Office Graph respect security of whatever source system data comes from. So you will never see anything in the Office Graph or in Delve that you cannot see in the original system it came from. For example, if it's stored in OneDrive, you'll have to have access to that entity in OneDrive. So you can basically consider the graph as one huge network where every user sees their slice and part of the graph, and it's always security trimmed to that particular user. When it comes to privacy, some user actions and some relationships are private, so they're only available to the current user. Those actions may be aggregated in an anonymous manner. For example, we can show the number of views on a particular document, but we won't show exactly which users viewed those documents. So authorship, actually editing a document in SharePoint, is a public action, while viewing is a private action.
Okay, so let's time to show you Delve. Switch over.
Yes.
So this is Delve, and it's our, as we said, our premier experience built to take advantage of the capabilities of the Office Graph. As you can see, it's visually beautiful, and it organizes content in several different ways, and I will briefly walk you through these now. So what you see now is the home page of Delve. And on this home page, you see a wide range of document cards. Documents that are stored in OneDrive for Business, on team sites, or sent as attachments in email. We even have cards for public websites. So if you go to Yammer, Microsoft's social offering for the enterprise, and post a link to a public group there, that card can appear here as card inside of Delve. And this page is all about discovery. It's how I often come here just to find out what's going inside of the company. And being in a big company like Microsoft, a lot is going on. And the reason things appear here is that the people I work with and their colleagues are interacting with these documents. And then we apply machine learning to that to recommend to me the most important content. So next, we have the Me page. And on the Me page is the documents that I am working on, regardless of where they're physically stored. And this is a very convenient way for me to get back to the work I'm doing. Okay, so Delve is very much a people-centric experience. And to help with that, we have a fully fledged search capability. So we search through all of your Active Directory. So let me search for Johan. And as you can see here on the left side, Johan is the top result. So what I find myself doing quite a lot is that when I have a meeting with somebody inside of my organization, I don't really know them that well. So then I can come to Delve to get some context about that person, to find out what they're working on. So I click on Johan, and now I'm taken to his homepage inside of Delve. And here I will see everything that he is working on. So I can see that there's some similarities between what we're doing. So this will really help me to learn to understand him, and if I have an upcoming meeting with him, to sort of be an invaluable source in front of that, earlier before that meeting. Right. So a different concept in Delve is what we call a board. And a board is a very convenient way to organize data, no matter where that data resides inside of the enterprise. So let me show you a board here. As you can see here, if I click on this one, that will take me to what we call a board. And these documents are stored in various places. We have a video file and a PowerPoint presentation and a Word presentation. And you can create these boards anytime you like. You can have as many as you want. You can add data to any type of board. And remember, as Helge said, you can only see what you're allowed to see. So there might be content in this board that you're not able to see, and vice versa for somebody else. So we also have fully fledged search capabilities for documents. So for instance, if I search for this document, I search for best, I get up best practices for slim design. I can then choose to add this to the design IDs board, and I can click on that again, and then you will see this document. We also have some nice sharing functionality. You can share this board using email. But this is the end of this demo. So now we will move on. So let's summarize what we have gone through so far. Delve is a user-centric experience with data from all over Office 365. It is built on top of the Office Graph and the machine learning capabilities that we have built to support that. Users can collaboratively organize content using the boards feature. And the Office Graph is a graph for the enterprise. It contains nodes and relationships between these nodes, as we call edges. And the core data model is centered around people. Who is working with who? What actions are you taking on documents? All of this is stored inside of the Office Graph. OK, so now we have looked at what the Office Graph is capable of today. Now let's change gears and look towards the future and see what changes we are bringing to the Office Graph and how we think that these are applicable to you.
Right, so we established that the Office Graph is a fabric connecting all your data sources in Office 365. And we already released this with Delve. So the main news going forward is really that now developers will be able to not only read from the graph, but also create, read, update, and delete entities in the graph. Yes, you heard me right. You can actually now change what's in this graph. And that's going to be a very powerful possibility. You will also be able to define what type of data goes into the graph. So if you have, for example, a bug in a bug database, you can define how that bug should be represented in the graph and just start putting in bugs there. So let's look at a bit more detail on where we're going. Yesterday, the Unified API was announced. That's an API on top of all the other Office 365 APIs, giving developers one coherent interface, one way of authenticating. In the past, you had to use different authentication methods towards SharePoint, towards Outlook, etc. But now with the Unified API, you just use one endpoint for all your queries, all your requests towards Office 365. And the Office Graph itself is another endpoint here that's exposed via OData and REST. You can connect directly to the Office Graph endpoint, or you could connect through the Unified API, which is the recommended way of reaching your data. And the entities that will be available in the graph will either be entities that are stored as part of Office 365 or references to entities in, for example, Google Drive, Dropbox, other systems. And the Office Graph API is a strongly typed API. So if you're dealing with a user, you're dealing with a user in the API. If you're dealing with a document, you're dealing with a document. And if you have defined a new bug as a type, then you're also dealing with a bug in the API. So it's a very strongly typed, well-defined API. Oh, and I did put your app up here. And the intent was that with this, you can start building apps that are just as rich as Delve and other tools we have in Office 365 by using the APIs. So what sort of data will we have available in the graph? Well, today, the Office graph contains a lot of the SharePoint data and some of the Outlook data. Going forward, we'll expose all data in Office 365 with conversations from Outlook and Yammer, different types of files from SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, users and groups from Azure Active Directory, and so on. What is new here is what's at the bottom, something we call action nodes and relationship nodes. So an action node represents an action taken by a user, for example, sharing something or accessing something. And that action is something that the graph can reason over and create new insights based on. And a relationship node is something that links together multiple entities. We'll talk more about that later in a demo. Okay, so if we go one more level further down and look at what exact concepts will we have in the graph, we will start out with nodes. So I've shown two nodes here. One is an example of a user, and the other is a file. And these nodes represent some kind of entity in Office 365 or in some other system. And these nodes have a set of properties. So a user node here could have a name and an alias and probably some other properties as well. These are basic properties. A file could have a title, URL, and it could also have an author. And in this case, the author is a navigational property. So it's a property that refers to another node. So thus it's an edge in the graph. It's a pointer. And when you look at any node in the graph, that node could have multiple aspects or extensions, as we call it. So a user, for example, could also be an employee in your company. And then if you define an employee extension, you can say what properties should an employee have. And then you put those properties on this user. And this is very powerful because you can take whatever data you have in Office 365 today, and you can just add more sets of properties to it with this extension mechanism. So you can take an email, and you can add travel itinerary information on that email, for example. So a user could also be an employee, and a file could be a document, or it could be a video, or different types of files. So these are ways of adding more information about the entities in the graph. Then we have these action nodes, which then represents actions taken by users. And a typical action node will be like this, where you have a timestamp when this action was done, which user performed the action, and what object the action was performed on. In addition, there will be a number of contextual information as well, such as which app the user used to take this action, and so on. So you can also define your own actions, obviously, and then add more information that you would need in your apps. We also use what we call relationship nodes, and those are nodes used to represent relationships between multiple other nodes, and you can put properties on them as well, but they would be very similar to an action node in this figure. Okay, then digging into some more detail, how you can access this data. We're going to use REST and OData to get to this data. And if you think of a graph where you have some relationships from users to entities that they have liked, and you want to navigate and start out with the user Jane and go to everything that she has liked, you'll post or you'll send a GET request like this, /users Jane /actions /liked, and you'll get a collection back with references to those objects. So you can see there are two objects here, one referring to a sales file and another to a bonus file. If you also want to get those objects with you in the same request, you can add $expand here. And then you tell the system you want to expand that object in the return here. So that basically means we take the object we had before, and we expand that and send that with the response back to you. So this is a very convenient way of traversing a graph with multiple nodes and connections between them. Okay, so A lot of people today work with search and search solutions to do similar things as graph traversal. So we're going to combine search and graph features. So you can easily imagine how you can do a traversal in the graph to get the items that you've modified or the items that Jane liked, as we had in the previous example. But if you also want to combine that with, OK, I only want those items that actually have windows in the title. Well, luckily, there is a natural way to do that with the OData syntax. So you just add a $search parameter here, and you specify the full text query there. So then you combine the graph, the power of the graph, with the power of searching.
OK, so Dijkstra was a wise man and a pioneer in computer science. And this quote, which I find quite striking, is a great segue to our next topic, analytics. So, as we already established, Office 365 is a suite of different services. And the content in these, as well as the actions the user are taking on this content, is fed into the Office graph. And the Office graph is really the brain of Office 365. And while a brain with no content is not very useful, the Office graph brain, and the Office graph is filled with memories or insights, many of which are created by analytics. These insights span workloads, providing a richness and completeness that we in turn can use to create amazing experiences like Delve. So when we look at how to make the graph smarter, we have two different ways of doing this. First, we have reactive analytics. And reactive analytics is like the human sensory system. It immediately captures, inputs are immediately captured and processed, and if the output of that analytics warrants an update to the graph, that is done within the same transaction. So this allows the Office graph to learn incrementally, where each increment will make the graph a little bit smarter. Then we have big batch-style oriented analytics that process rows upon rows of data. And once these jobs have completed, the layout of the graph may have changed considerably. People relations may have changed, linking you to new people. And people you used to be linked to, you're not linked to them anymore because you might not be working with them. So it's really taking into account what is actually going on for you at the moment. So drawing an analogy to real life, these batch jobs are like sleeping. Huge quantities of data is processed and stored away for later retrieval. Redundant information is removed to make room for new insights. So far we have talked about data that is inside of Office 365. Now we will expand our scope and look at extensibility options. And that is, how do we bridge the gaps to also include data that lives in other services?
Right, so I've plotted out here the extensibility options and the extensibility points we have with the graph and with Delve. So first of all, the big news really going forward is that you can add your own data to the graph. That's going to make a major difference for all those people that are today using the graph we have. But you can also define your own data types. So you then define not only the data that goes in, but what sort of data that goes into the graph. Further on, you can send actions. So if you, in your app, is showing stuff from the Office 365, for example, and the user does some action in your app, you can send that action into the graph. So the action can be taken into account when the graph is deriving insights and so on. The graph will also have the possibility to send out notifications to your app so that you can be notified when certain things trigger in the graph. And finally, as Jon just talked about, there will be multiple ways of having analytics, and you will be able to customize those analytics so that you can do your own calculations of insights based on data in the Office graph. Since Delve is the experience today that's mostly using the Office graph, we're also going to show you quickly the extension points of Delve. So as you saw in Delve, the Delve demo, we show cards representing different entities. And so one natural extension point is to change what those cards look like and what sort of actions you can do based on those cards. In the demo later, we'll see some of the custom cards from Salesforce, and then you can imagine you can do different types of actions directly on those cards. In addition, it's also going to be possible to customize what data is actually shown in Delve by creating different boards and using the different mechanisms of Delve there. So this picture really shows all the extension points that we have envisioned with the graph and with Delve. Okay, so I did talk about how you can enrich your own data. So with the graph, we saw that a user could also be an employee. And when you query the graph, you can examine what sort of extensions does each of the nodes I'm getting in the graph have. So for example, you can check whether a user is also an employee. And you can also ask for only employees. So you can do all this kind of inspection of graphs and of nodes and what sort of extensions and types they are. In addition, you can add a new extension to any existing node. So you just do a post with the extension you want to add to an object, and then that set of properties is applied to the object in question. And this is pretty powerful and useful for third-party apps, but I also think a lot of third-party apps will have the need and desire to actually create their own types of data. So, for example, a bug database, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll have a schema service that keeps track of all the extensions in the system. You can query this schema service and get back all the extensions that are available. And then you can just post to the schema service and define your own extensions on the fly as you need them. And this immediately updates the API. So if you then do something like /me/bugs, then you could get all your bugs back immediately from the API after defining what a bug actually is. So we'll have a look at the code for this a little bit later.
Okay, so we know that the modern workplace is fragmented. Companies are using a number of different services to get their work done. People use Office 365 maybe to send email and store documents inside of SharePoint. And then they might be using Salesforce as their CRM system, or a visual collaboration tool like Trello. So opening up the Office graph through extensibility, we want to enable your customers to place shallow representations inside of the Office graph and potentially see this in Delve. So we have 3 ways of thinking about how to get data into the Office graph. So first, Microsoft will stand up a set of services that will target the Office graph explicitly, pulling in data from external services like Salesforce and Trello. The goal for this service is to make it as easy as possible for the end users to hook up their data to the Office graph. Then we think that there might be a set of services that want to talk directly to the Office graph API themselves. So they will actually go in and put in the hooks in the code to push content and signals or user actions to the Office graph, and potentially also pull back content from the Office graph as well. The last model is where a third party stands up this type of service to be a middleman between a source system and the Office graph. And what we will deliver to them is an Office graph SDK, making it a lot easier to communicate with the Office graph. So at the start of this talk, we talked about the 2 things that you should remember once this talk was over. And one of them was that you can actually put external content into the Office graph and Delve. And this next section is dedicated to that. So various services inside of Office 365 feed content and actions into the Office graph. Now, through extensibility, we can add external sources to the Office graph in Delve, exemplified here through Salesforce. Salesforce will then be made available through one of the 3 models we briefly looked at earlier. So now it's time for a new demo. And in this demo, I will take on the guise of Jon Meling He is a sales director for Contoso. And I guess you heard about Contoso before. So,
Yeah, they do a lot of weird stuff, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I think there's a bank.
There is a
actually.
bank and an online website, a university actually.
I studied there.
That explains a lot actually.
I know. That's why I'm a PM. Okay, so in this demo, Contoso is a different company. It's a company that delivers custom-made interior to big international airlines like Tromsø Airlines and Bergen Airways. If you come from Norway, you know that those are very small cities. Contoso is also part of the Office 365 first release program and has such been using Delve for 6 months. I have selected to connect my Salesforce account to the Office Graph, and I've selected to show Salesforce opportunities inside of my Delve experience. My sales team has done the same, so now let's take a look at what that would look like. There we go. So this is Delve, as you previously saw, but now there are some new things here that you haven't seen before. For instance, there is a Salesforce opportunity. We also have a Trello card over here. It says new OAS seat fabrics, which is basically a reminder for me to go and do something at Trello. So the first thing Jon Meling, the sales director, wants to do is check out the new opportunities that's coming in to see as well. So I see that Johan Grønvik, one of my new sales representatives, have added a new opportunity against Senja Airlines for some trolleys for a plane. So I know that one of my previous, or no, not previous, but one of my more experienced employees, he has already landed a similar deal against Bergen Airways some time back. So what I want to do now is to create a board for him so I can add data to, so that I can help Johan with his work. So we'll call it SA Trolleys. So now I created a board, and as you can see on the left-hand side, that board appeared on the top of the board list up here. So now I want to find the documents that Kim had. So I will just search for TROLL. Oh, one L too many. And there I see. Okay, so Bergen Airway trolleys, and it was actually closed as one, so that's perfect. That's what I want. I don't want any that's closed as lost. And what I see Kim has done here is added some collateral documents from inside of Office 365 and bunched that together with a document, with a Salesforce opportunity. So I just recently created a board, so I will go and add these documents to that board. And let's go and take a look at this board now. So what I can do now, I can send this as an email to Johan and tell him that, hey, can you and Kim please work together on this and use this board as a foundation to make sure that we land this deal. So one of my other sales representatives is Helge Solheim, and he's working on this big deal for us, and it's making quite a lot of money. So here I see Helge Solheim's people page, and I see an opportunity here against Tromsø Airlines for new business seats for a lot of 777s. So he has already tagged this with a must win. So let's see. I think this looks good. He has the documents he needs, and I think he is, even though it's just in the qualifying stage, that looks to be promising to me. So I can click on this link, and there we go, directly to Salesforce. So this is a very convenient way for people, once you have bridged those services, taking an action inside of Delve will link you directly to Salesforce. Okay, that was that demo.
Excellent. So what's next? Well, I'm sort of looking confused here. Anytime I go to a conference or something, I have to bring along a lot of stuff. And all of these things are usually in Office 365. So I have a number of documents, and I have a lot of meetings to attend. I need to do some dry runs. I have some duty in the stands, and different things. And I have all these things sort of swirling around. And the idea here was that we really wanted to show you how you can create an app that takes some of the existing Office 365 content you have, such as in my case, a lot of things here related to the other users and documents and meetings and stuff, and how you can take that existing Office 365 data and link it up with some new entities that you define yourself. So the architecture here is I have some files in SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. I have some meetings in my calendar, and I have some users in Active Directory. And this is all good, but they're not really connected. There's nothing with these things that connect them to these particular conferences I'm going to. So what I want is I want to create some new type of entities in the Office Graph, a conference entity and a demo entity. And then I want to create some structure here linking my documents and my events and my other colleagues together with these conferences and demos. And with the new Unified API that we just announced, I can use this Unified API and access all of this data through one single coherent user interface, developer interface. Unfortunately for this particular demo, the Office Graph isn't yet available, so I'll have to do sort of a shortcut to a test server that I have in Oslo. But apart from that, in theory, I could use the Unified API for all of this. And then I'll build a Windows 8 app on top here. So let's just go ahead and look at our demo app. So if you'll just switch me over, it's number 8. Thank you. So here's my demo planner app. Are there any app developers here? A couple. I'm sure you could make nicer apps, but it's not the point to show you the best app, but more the principle. So here's a list of demos. We have the Salesforce demo that Jon's running, and then the scheduler demo. That is the current demo we're looking at here. So if I open this demo, then this demo was stored in the Office Graph, and inside the graph, we also stored a list of conferences that we'll be going to with this demo. And when I click on one of the conferences, for example, the Build conference, I get to see the participants, the documents, and the schedules, all Office 365 data that have been connected with this particular conference. And the way we built this app is, if I want to add more participants here, I click Add Participants, and then I'm using this new method in the Unified API called Working With. Whenever you call that method, you get a list of people back, and those are the people that Office 365 and the graph believe are the ones you have worked the most with. And that's based on the people you have been emailing with, and also with people that you are co-authoring documents with. So usually this list of people is a really relevant list of people that you actually work with. It's not based on the people that you should be working with based on your org chart, but it's based on the people you actually work with. And the same thing applies to documents. So when I press Add Documents here, I get a list of the documents that are trending around me, as we call it. That's another method in the Unified API. So these are all SharePoint and OneDrive for Business documents, and I can then click on one of them. And I'll add that to this particular set of documents for this demo. So that link is something I'm storing in the Office Graph, but the other things are all in Office 365. OK, so that's the app. And I'll try to explain a little bit. Let's also look at the code for this. So first of all, here's just a standard Windows 8 app demo planner. If you look at the initialize function here, what we're doing here is we're first making sure that we have the extensions, the data types that we need defined in the graph. So if we go into this method here, what we're doing is we're basically making sure we have a conference extension, that we have a demo extension, and then we're also creating some other extensions to link to the Office 365 data. And in order to do this, we first just make a GET request, checking whether we can get any conferences. If that fails, we go and create that extension. So we'll go and check that out. So in order to define the conference extension, we just list what sort of properties should a conference have. So we decided a conference should have a name, a location, a submission deadline. That's super important. Why? Hey, you haven't uploaded the latest Ignite deck, Jon. You need to do that.
Yes, I will use the demo.
Submission deadline is really important. And a website URL and an ID for this. So this is then the definition of a conference. And what we do with that is we simply package that in a JSON object, and we send a post request to a URL here with extension types. So just to define a new conference, I just post 2 extension types. And then I suddenly have conferences available in the graph. So if we go back a couple of steps here, this was the initialize method. And the initialize method here also lists all the demos available. So we can also have a look at that code. So here we have, since we haven't released yet, we don't have the SDKs available, but you should expect some SDK that will give you client-side stubs for what you need here. We just created a template here to deal with any type of object in the graph. So we basically do a get entities here. We can go here and look. So what we're doing here is we're making a get call to the me endpoint here, and then adding the entity name. So if we just do a get and then API data me conferences, we'll get a list of all the conferences back with all the data that we have defined. So immediately after we posted to the extension types URL, this endpoint was available. So this is a great way of working with your data. And then in this example here, we get all the demos, and we just iterate through them and create some control on our page here. So this is really how we are working with the Office Graph, and it's as simple as working with the other OData REST APIs in Office 365 today. But it is super flexible, since you can define your own extensions and add them for your needs in your app. OK, I think that's what I want to show of code here. Right, so then we'll start wrapping up a little bit by looking at the roadmap of features and what are the next steps. So we have talked about most of these features, so let's just try to sum them up a little bit. We are today with Delve and the Office Graph we have available. We have extended the SharePoint Search API with a graph extension. How many people here have tried the graph extensions of SharePoint Search? Anyone?
2, 3.
A couple? Yeah. So that was sort of a hidden thing inside SharePoint Search and so on. Now we are creating a REST OData API, which will make it a lot easier to use the data in the graph. And it will also allow you to create and update and delete things in the graph. That is, of course, that your users or your tenants have given you the consent to do so. So further on, we will ship client SDKs so that you can use these things more easily, unless you happen to like making REST calls directly. I guess that depends mostly on what platform you're on and what language you're using, whether you want to use REST or some client code. Okay, we also looked at type extensibility. So with this new graph, you can define what sort of types are available, and you can store your own data, or you can link existing data together, like I did with the conferences and demos in the demo we saw. We will provide some connectors. Jon showed you 3 models for connectors. One model where we set up a connector that's available in Office 365, another where the third-party system chooses to push data directly through Office 365, and a third model where some third party sets up a service for you and does the connection. So there will be a number of connectors out there, out-of-the-box ones, and possibilities for you to develop your own connectors. We also talked about custom analytics and how that's going to be possible to add new insights to the already existing insights in the graph and adjust the insights the graph creates based on what you put in there of data. There will be a notification mechanism that can send notifications to different types of devices. That's going to be very powerful for a number of app scenarios. Finally, there will be a licensing model for the graph. We haven't worked out what that model will be, so that's going to be something we'll have to come back with more information later. Okay.
Some calls to action. Please go and read about the Office Graph. The link is there. It's available now. Try to build apps with the Office Graph, Office 365 REST API, and the Unified API.
Yeah, and if you do that, when you use the Unified API, try out the working with and trending around methods. Those methods give you data directly from the Office Graph, similar to what Delve is using, and that's also what I was using in the example app I had.
Right, so also watch out for the public beta. It is coming. Tweet or yam about this an Office Graph using Office Graph, the hashtag. And also check out 7:42 tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. about new Outlook APIs and developing against those. It's been an interesting talk as well.
Yes, and to sum up this session, we have released Delve and we have released Office Graph. This was recently made available in Office 365, and it derives insights and intelligence for your work, making it easier for people to keep up to date on what's going on in the organization, making it easier to find data, and making it easier also to discover new connections and learn about people in their organization. So, however, we are coming with a number of improvements to the Office Graph going forward. Allowing you to not just query the graph, but also to add your own content and to define what sort of content goes into the graph and how that's stored. So with those extensions, you should be able to create a lot of great apps and experiences across Office 365. And then finally, when it comes to release roadmap, we don't have any dates available, but the next step is sort of to come with a public beta of these new capabilities.
Yeah, and the reason for that is we want to deliver something that's good enough. We don't want to disappoint you in that regard. So.
Absolutely. So we'd like to thank you all for coming. Before we open up for questions, we have this slide to show you. So please remember to fill in the evaluation. That's the best way for us to learn or to improve for later. Then we'll open up for questions, and we'll also be outside if there are more questions than we have time to answer. OK, thank you.
Is that OData 3 or 4?
That's OData 4.
Are you using the extensibility in OData 4 for the custom attributes, or is it something that's specific to Office 365?
I think we can have a follow-up on the exact details of OData, but it's the same OData that you'll see across all the other Office 365 APIs. Yeah, please line up at the mic if you have questions.
Yeah, are there I guess what's the roadmap for this look like for on-prem Office servers? So is there going to be like an equivalent that I can install Graph within an enterprise firewall, or is this always going to be 365 only?
So that's a great question. What we've said so far is that likely there will be a hybrid story for on-premises, but that you have to also use the cloud. We're likely not going to ship these features to the on-prem services.
When you introduce extension types and extension attributes, is it? I saw that you had the /me. Is it global, or are there any namespaces where you can extend the types?
Right, so yes, there will be some sort of namespaces. We haven't figured out the exact model, but likely it's going to be so that when an application is installed, the application registers its extension types at the same time. And then there is some scoping to what those extensions are, where those extensions are available. But as you said, some data is naturally scoped under one particular user. Other data is tenant-wide. And thus it shouldn't be /me, but it shouldn't be /me/bugs, but it should be /bugs, for example, something that's shared across all users. So yes, there will definitely be namespacing involved here. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Is there any way to tag existing nodes with metadata so that you can then recategorize it for yourself?
Yes, so you're asking if you can tag existing nodes with metadata. Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. And then query it and get it back with those tags, yeah?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, group. Okay, very cool.
indeed. Any other questions? Nope, then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you all.